Hi there, crafty friends. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Happy Easter. I hope everyone has a wonderful day with family and friends. Today, I thought we would make a card using Spellbinders Sprinkle and Grow dies. And I am also including the little blooms dies. So this card is very detailed as far as the die cutting goes. I did a lot of die cutting and I did pre-prep that just because it does take so long, but I wanted to show you what I did. So I used my Empress for all of this, and I've combined the two sets of dies. I separated them from flowers and leaves and centers. And you can see we've got a lot of different leaves and greenery here. And I'm just using scraps. I pulled a whole bunch of scraps out from my stash. And I am going to run the leaves through my Empress using lots of different colors of green. And I'm just using scraps. You can see how to fit those on there. Then we've got two dies here that are for the centers of our flowers. And I did use several different colors for this. I've got some greens and I've also got some yellows and oranges and just different colors. And then we've got all of our flowers. I won't be using all of the flowers, but I did just cut. I went crazy. I just went crazy and I cut tons and tons of different color flowers and different color leaves. And like I said, I'm just using scraps. We don't want to waste, big pieces of paper. And so I did that. I ran this through my machine. I've got everything on there. And then I did use my metal shim just because it helps cut those a little bit easier. And that's all I did, a whole bunch of times in all different colors. Here I'm going to pop in a little picture of all of the flowers and leaves that I die cut so you can see all the different colors and how many I did. So let's get started on our watering can. Our watering can, we have 3 dies here. And I cut this twice. I cut it from a metallic kind of silver paper, and then I also cut it from white. And you get several images here. So you get the watering can, you get your little handle, you get the spout, and then you get another handle that goes on top. I won't be using that. And then you also get this other little flag-like piece. And according to the picture, they've got that behind here. So it's almost stabilizes the watering can a little bit more. They put it in the back, but I won't be using that piece either. So I want my watering can to be two-toned. So I did 2 sets, one in white and one in the metallic silver. We are going to trim apart our silver can because I want some definition in my can. So you've got the cutting lines, and I'm just going to trim away on the base and then on the rim. So I've just trimmed those, and then, after you get that separated, you can give it another little trim if it needs it. I think I need to trim this one. And then once you get that all trimmed, we're just going to glue these pieces onto our watering can. Just as simple as that. This card does take a lot of die cutting, and I'm going to be honest with you. All of the die cutting of those flowers and leaves, they did take me quite a bit of time, which is why I wanted to, have it all done and try to prep everything. But this card came together so cute, I think. So we've got our rim up there. A fine tip glue bottle will be your best friend because there are so many little pieces. That was a little piece of paper there. And we're just going to glue these on. You don't need a lot of glue, just a little bit. So I've been downgraded a little bit. I heard from Trisha the other day at Firefly Farm. So for her June crate that I was talking about, I will just be doing the make and take. And I'm super happy. I will be using Pinkfresh Studio items. But then for the August crate, I will be doing a full class. I think it just got a little bit too packed and she had to kind of eliminate a little bit of things because there's only so much time in the day. So here I'm avoiding those little circles in my spout with my glue. I'm just trying to get little dots in there, but she does have everything currently listed on her website. So I will put a link in the description. And when you purchase one of her crates, believe me, you receive so much more. The value is so much more than what you paid for it. And you'll be getting 4 classes. I think it's 4. Is it 4 or 3? I think it's 3. I talked about those before. She's got Jen Shirkus, she's got Mindy Egan, and she's got Leah Lawson. And so we're just going to add our little pieces on there. Then for our handle, we're just going to put a little bit of glue right on there. We can just lift that up and place that right there. And this sets up in no time at all. So now we need to bring in some flowers. I showed you my picture of all of my flowers that I die cut, and I did go ahead and assemble some. And I used the stems, so I've got several pieces left here. We're going to use a whole bunch of these greenery pieces to fill it all in. I've got a lot of them here. So this card can be used for just about anything. I am going to use it for a Mother's Day card, I think. Let's start and see what we want to do. I know I am going to put lots of flowers in here and lots of greenery, and I think I want my bouquet to be pretty tall. So I'm just going to do, a little bit of flowers here and just kind of lay it out a little bit. And I think that height is probably pretty good for our center flower. So let's bring in some double-sided tape. I want all of this to stick from the back. So I am going to put 2 pieces of double-sided tape right here. So when I add in my flowers, they stay in place. We can take the backing off of that, and then we're just going to start adding. So I want this purple one to be in the foreground. So we're going to place that first, and I'm putting them through that rim of our watering can. So now we can just add more flowers, whatever colors we want. I wanted it springy. I wanted it bright and cheery. So let's just add a couple more. We're just going to fill that in, and we're sticking those in there, and we're pushing on the back so that those stems stick into that double-sided tape. And I found that this was really the easiest. So now we can add a couple more. Let's do different colors. How about a pink one? And we're just pushing that. Oops. We're going to put that through there and then push it with our other hand so that that stem sticks into that double-sided tape. And I think maybe a yellow one over here. We can add all the flowers we want. I want my bouquet to be really full. Let's start adding some greenery. So for my greenery, I am using all different colors, and we're just going to fill in those blank areas. And I am just going to add until I feel like I've got enough on there. I think our bouquet is nice and loaded with greenery and flowers. I think we can go ahead and put this aside and start on our background. So for our background, I am using the Perfect Touch Arches and Tag dies from Spellbinders. I love these. They are stitched, which gives you some really nice detail. So I took a dark green that matched my greenery, and I cut that out of the largest arch. Then I'm taking my very next arch and I cut that out of a light green. I did use this light green for a couple of the flower centers, but other than that, that's the only time I used it. And then I took this die and I ran it through my die cutting machine. This is the Modern Leaf background press plate. And I took this and just dry embossed it in my die cutting machine. I put the die on the plate, and then I put the plate on my gray foam mat and then ran that through my machine. And then I got this beautiful impression on there. I just wanted a little bit more detail. So let's work on our card base. So I've got a top folding A2 card base, and I want this card to be shaped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of look at the back and have just a little bit of that arch hang over. And what I would normally do is take this die and cut my card base. But I didn't want my card base to have those stitching marks in it. So I'm just going to do it this way, and it's just as easy. It'll work out just as perfect. And you can see we've got a nice amount of cardstock there that will still be folded for our card base. So we're just going to put that on top there. And then we're going to bring in a very sharp pencil, and I'm just going to trim this card base. That's all. We're just going to trim it off. I'm going to bring in my Spellbinders shears, and these are perfect for this because they will cut through both pieces of that cardstock and it'll just come out super nice. So I'm just trimming that away. Now we'll do the other side. Then we can check our piece here and see how well that matches up in the back. And I think that looks perfect. So now all we have to do is just trim off the bottom a little bit. Because we had that die cut piece up a little higher than the card base, we have that overhang at the bottom. So we'll just trim that off. So now we can add our piece to our card base. And I'm just adhering this directly with glue. I don't mind that little bit at the top. You know, if you send this to someone that does not make cards, they're going to say, oh, that's really cool. I love that shaped card. If you send this to someone that makes cards, they're going to say, oh, that worked out pretty good. That looks nice. And then it'll stand up perfect. Then we can add our other panel. So we've got foam tape on the back of our layering piece, and I'm just going to center that. And that is so cute. It stands up, it's shaped, it's perfect. Then we can bring back in our bouquet piece, and that is going to look perfect. See, that's what I wanted. I wanted my greenery to go all the way around and fill in that whole space. So now I've got foam squares. I've got thin foam squares and I've got taller foam squares. If you look at them, you can really see the difference. Maybe I should hold one up next to each other. You can really tell that there is quite a bit of difference in the height there. So we've got thin and we've got regular. I am going to put regular foam squares down here at the bottom because we've got so much bulk up at the top. We don't want to add even more. So I'm going to put foam squares at the bottom all the way up to where the greenery starts. And then I will put one in the middle right there. And I am also going to trim some and put them on the spout of my watering can. So I also put them on the spout, like I was telling you, because I don't want my watering can to lay flat. I don't want the spouts to lay flatter than the rest of it. So now we can bring in some of our thin foam squares, and we're just going to look and kind of look through this and see where we can place some of those that won't show through the bouquet. And I think that's probably pretty good. I'm placing those behind the flowers so you can't see. Let's add a couple more, and that's perfect. So let's bring our card base back in. We're going to peel off all the backings. So this card was very easy. It was super, super easy, but it is time consuming. What with all the die cutting and then carefully placing all your flowers and your greenery. I've got all my release papers off, and I'm going to bring in my glue. And I am just going to add a little bit of glue to some of those greenery pieces so they will stick down. Then we can bring in our bouquet. I think that looks pretty good. We can just push everything down. We've got a little bit of glue on some of those pieces in the back, and we'll just tap those down. Then we can kind of fluff up our flowers a little bit for more dimension. So now for my sentiment, I have wishing you a lovely day. I got this sentiment from my Better Press place. This is the Better Press Society. This was January 2025. And I used this sentiment previously in a video. This is wishing you a lovely day. I just hot foiled that. And I think we will add some foam tape behind here and get that attached. So we've got our sentiment on there. Now I'm going to add some embellishments. And for my embellishments, I will be using Pinkfresh Studio matte pearls, matte silver pearls, because I hot foiled my sentiment in matte silver, and I want the silver pearls to match my accents on my watering can. And then I will be adding some Spellbinders colored gems inside the little flowers. My embellishments are all added, and I think that came out super cute. I did add a couple more flowers. I put a pink one here. I've got a little peach one over here. Our embellishments are on, and that is beautiful. I think I probably went a little overboard on the flowers. I know I could have added more. I had to make myself stop, but I think it came out super cute. I will be using this as a Mother's Day card, and it sits up perfect. There's just a little portion at the top that shows, but I don't think it matters at all. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Everything I used today will be listed and linked in the description below. Please give me a thumbs up. Please leave me a comment, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.